for today. Thank you
I
for
can.
sleeping in and being in this conversation with me. This morning, Jason sent a text and was like, was there anything we could do? And it's just like, what can we do? And really getting into this space of conversation is what speaks to me. And both of you were a yes. So thank you for showing up. And I don't think anyone knows what to do. And so being able to jump into this and being willing to even start moves me powerfully.
Thank you for having me. And hi, Jason.
How are you?
Yes, and I don't know
I'm
if you
good.
officially met yet. So
Uh,
Amanda, you guys both give a little two bits on who you are. Amanda and I got connected probably a month or two ago through a powerful connection. She just went through something recently, and then Jason and I have been connected probably 2 years now, and has been in my corner supporting me with all the stuff I've been doing on TikTok, and just we talk daily, working on launching a lot of things, and specifically resources in regards to helping end this conversation on the planet.
yeah. So I'm Amanda and I run Fire to Inspire. So I have my own business where my goal in life is to help women and men that are moving through the processes of trauma and want to go in a different direction in their life. So just supporting them in that and figuring out where they're headed and where they want to be is my line of work, is what I do. And I just had a very personal experience that is really drawing me into this conversation deeply, as if it wasn't already on my heart, but now it really is.
Yeah, it's a bit unfortunate that us as humans require a catalyst as drastic as trauma at any level before we truly become or strive to become part of the solution, right?
Yeah.
It's my heart's pretty heavy today because of the very thing that we've been working on. And this is the second time in my life that I feel as if I failed because I've been working, and in my mind not hard enough. What could I have done? Because I've lost somebody that's been a friend for years to suicide. And you know the that was heavy news to hear today. And the fact that not only was he a police officer, he was and I don't mean to derail the conversation, and I'm sorry,
No.
No
he was
derailing.
also
This is real. Thank you for being real.
he's also a veteran. And you know Jenna, the conversation we had yesterday with the people that we're working with, trying to create awareness around some of the solutions that we hope to bring, but also around the fact that the systems that are currently available are failing.
Absolutely.
We're losing.
It feels
He had
like
his
we're
own,
losing.
he was in a battle. We're losing the war. You understand what I'm saying? How
Absolutely.
can we win a war if we're losing the battles?
I identify with that so heavily because not I want to say for whatever reason, but it's not for whatever reason. I know because of who I am, that's why I was put in these positions. But um, we've lost a significant amount of people in my life to suicide, but two, I was very close to the situation, like days out, hours out. And that I share that same sentiment, Jason, where I feel like I lost and I feel like I was there as much as I felt like I could be. And I still, lost the battle. And that's why it is important to come to the table and say, wait a minute, this isn't one person's fight or a community's fight. This is really bigger than that, to where it's a broader, topic that needs to be had, that isn't just amongst friends trying to save a person.
Yeah.
And really, too, I want to add, Jason, you had said you didn't want to derail the conversation. For me, it's this like being the lowest common denominator. Take the conversation and live where everything is derailing too, as if we avoid this space. it's this experience of, for me, where I'm like, what celebrity needs to die before we start talking about this again? Like the lives of your friends and what's here and the lives of people we connect to, like their lives are equally valuable. So why does it take a celebrity to make this be an important conversation? This is the numbers, for me, ADHD, 25% of those inside of ADHD live inside of this conversation. What I'm learning about, law enforcement, veterans, high schoolers, like the degree of people inside of this conversation and affected by those inside of this conversation, inside of the war that's in the brain, it's and normalizing it and destigmatizing it and acting like this isn't a thing on the planet. It just avoiding it's never going to actually give us what we need, and the solutions we have are as you say, Jason, are failing, and we need to leverage the systems and we need to fill the gaps. And so you guys both are such powerhouses that I get to see taking actions and moving the planet in that direction.
But it's a shame that we have to. We're creating systems that benefit the people who work in them and not the people that are supposed to benefit, right? Not the consumer. And as I dove into hashtag nonprofit life and started working in, mental health and homelessness and addiction and with veterans, and I'm slowly starting to realize that there are people who are in positions in these organizations whose only goal is to pay their mortgage and make a nice little life for themselves. And they have a tolerance, a rate of failure they're willing to accept in order to maintain their status quo and allow people to fall through the cracks. More times than not, I've dealt with people and organizations who said, I've already dealt with him and he's difficult to deal with and he doesn't want to help himself. So that is just enough to make people wash their hands and walk away from people because they're too difficult. That's what I've been getting. I've been getting through organizations that we do all that we know how to do, and people can just make an appointment and they can come in. That's a barrier. Do you understand? All you're doing is putting up barriers and creating a system that benefits you as an employee and not the consumer.
And I will say, and I hate that you have dealt with it in that way. I'm about to, it's interesting. It's not missed on me that you are one step ahead of me, Jason, in this territory of, I actually do have a meeting today of all days, to sit down with a recovery house. I have created resources that I think will help people. And in my mind, I keep saying, well, it's not that big, but I hope it helps. But it is big. I have a gratitude is the attitude. It's a gratitude journal, basically just trying to get people to anchor into what is beautiful and what is going well in their lives, because sometimes we do not focus in that area, especially when we're in the dark. And so I'm curious to see how this meeting will go with these people. I don't know yet, but I'm hopeful that if we are met at some point in this journey of trying to help people as much as we can, that if we come up against someone who is not in alignment, or who, like you said, Jason, you don't feel like they're there really to support the people that we're talking about, then we move on to the next one. And then we move on to, because there are people in this business and in these areas that absolutely care, that aren't making shit.
Yeah. And that's the thing. The system is set up for failure. Here's the reality. People go into this life to be able to, they have a mission. They want to help people, save lives, whatever the case may be. But then the reality is that now they've got to pay a mortgage and they're dependent upon that income. If you solve the problem, your income goes away. Your employment goes away, right? And so they have to maintain themselves. And that becomes first and foremost. And then the mission isn't fulfilled anymore. And then you bring these people to their doorstep and say, hey, this fella needs help. And they say, well, we've dealt with them before. Now it's in God's hands, is literally what I end up hearing.
Yeah. And I really see there's a cognitive dissonance that makes it so there's an other out there and I'm doing all the things that I can do. And there's a degree of survival mode that every human is in. And so there is a status quo. And I will say I was in it, not doing anything inside of this world. And it got me. And I know divinely orchestrated, and this experience of, I have a resource, I have a house, I have food, I have people I can go to, and I barely got out. So this reality of those that are inside of a real conversation between life and death every day, those that don't have resources, I don't know how someone gets out of this based on my experience. And so that's where it's, Amanda, too, you this just what I really got to see when you talked about it was literally the vision of Walt Disney, who was just like, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Like, we don't know who's going to be the catalyst to having this actually happen. And there is a momentum that's needed. And I do believe there's enough people out there, like all of us, that are in these privileged positions, that it's like, no more. Like, I will do something, even if it's small, and being able to bring us all together. I do believe momentum will get created. And that's what I woke up this morning of, like, how do we create momentum in this conversation? How do we bring actual hope that makes the masses want to listen? Because there is a degree of cognitive dissonance that I'm just trying to disrupt by being me out loud, because there is such a divide.
Well, and I love that you're doing this. I love that we're obviously, all of our hearts are in it. We have that passion and that fight almost, right? That's why we're difficult, because we have that fight to valiantly show up for others. But even with what you were saying, Jason, like, I don't intend to, like, just ruffle your feathers, but I do think that maybe that's the thing, is where I am at right now in solving this issue, just personally and professionally, is giving people their own tools to get out of this space, because putting the responsibility back on a entity or the government or staff is like, that's the problem, right? No one can save you from you. And the only difference from me and my friend that I just buried yesterday is that I said, I am in trouble. I need help. I am not doing well. I had to do that to get out of that space. And so how do we give people the tools personally to work through whatever it is that they're going through, versus walking them to a front doorstep and saying, help this person? Because really what I'm slowly learning in this is that absolutely no one can help you unless you are intrinsically in a space to go, I am in a dark place. How do we move that?
Because the reality is that you've got to forward think beyond that. If you're in a traumatic, say a car accident, and you're bleeding, if I roll up and hand you the tools, do you know what to do with them? And are you even in a state of mind to be able to use them? And the reality is, triage is a situation that not only applies to physical, but it applies to mental.
Yeah.
And you need to be able to pick somebody up and say, you don't know what you need right now, but let me go ahead and stop the bleeding. And then we can move you to the next step. The one thing that I've realized in my journey and the people that I've dealt with, and I don't even want to say helped, people that I've worked with at different capacities, was that when you walk up and say, what do you need? They shrug their shoulders and go, I don't know.
And
it's because they don't know.
They don't.
Okay.
And that's why they're stuck in that place, right? Because they're like, I have no idea.
Exactly. And this isn't somebody, we're talking about somebody that's making a decision to end their life, and not somebody that's currently just battling addiction. They've gone to the next step.
Yeah.
And when you're at a crisis level that high, that's your answer. The tool you seek is whatever tool necessary to carry out that act.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's where I get passionate about the science too of the brain. Like, you don't have a frontal lobe access when this is happening. You don't have complex thinking. And even when the cops got called on me, they were trying to have a complex conversation. I'm like, my brain can't even have this conversation.
Trauma
right
response.
now. Why are we doing
trauma
this?
response? It's the
trauma
same
response.
thing, whether it's whether it's physical or mental. Trauma response is the same. Your brain is designed to do that.
And that's where it's like, people in these spaces don't have the means to be able to meet someone in that trauma brain state, and that just compounding the issue, creating so much more trauma. Maybe they do survive, and now you just leave them to themselves to try to battle this with no resources. And I'll say this for myself too. So many people with what I was at, people are like, I want to help, and I'm like, I don't know what to tell you to do because I don't know what I need. Like, there's not an ability of someone to come in neutrality and actually support someone through something. So that's for me the passion and self-discovery I've been in, because I'm like, I don't know what we need. I do believe there's something missing here, and how do we break that down? And that's something Jason and I have been able to create and move in some tangible ways towards. And the war, it does feel like we're losing a war. So how do you even gain momentum when you already feel like you're losing?
That's a great question. It does feel like we're losing. That's exactly the processing I did yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
But I also was sitting in a beautiful place of knowing that I had won in my own rights, because that could have been my funeral. I was in that place, and it did feel like a win, right? Is that like, I don't know how the hell I got myself out of that, but I did, and I'm here. And I'm not going to stop trying to push to make a difference. And so we're not losing because we're fighting. And so if you're still fighting, it's not over, you know? Like, it just feels that way, especially when you lose people you love, especially when you've been in that place. It feels like a loss. I mean, it is a loss, and it feels like losing, but you're not losing if you're still fighting. So I think that's the part, right? Take that when you already feel defeated and you're coming into a space, it's going to be hard to make moves. It's about changing the way that we're looking at it. I think we can keep going, and we will get closer, because enough of us will put our foot down and say, we have to do better. We have to do better. We have to do better.
Yes, I feel that powerfully. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, yeah. Uncharted territories.
Yeah, the problem is that the organizations that currently exist to try to solve this problem are going to need to be discredited
I believe
because
that.
they're failing. And so in my experiences, what I've experienced is that, you know, you can try the flies with honey and be real sweet about the way you approach these organizations, and then they'll kindly kind of swish you off and say, you know, go on somewhere else. We've got this handled. This is our territory. This is what we do. And then you come in and say, no, you're not doing it, because here are the people. Here are the trenches, and here are the people laying in the trenches. Who are the people that you, here are the people that you claim to be here to be a resource for. They're right here. What are you doing? Who are you helping? And they say, well, we've got this resource and we've got that. It's not working. And then you start the battle that is the nonprofits fighting each other because it's coming from the same pool of funding. And so everybody wants to be the same a solution to the same problem, and none of them are making any headway. You know, the reality is the organization that my friend worked for was the very organization that is supposed to be helping veterans overcome these situations. He was employed there. I mean, he wasn't just able to gain resource. That's where he worked every day. And it didn't work for him. What's that tell you? You know what I mean? It means there's too many barriers. The system is too clunky. And no matter how much money they throw at it and how much, it doesn't work. It obviously doesn't work. There's the proof right there.
Well, and my childhood friend that, you know, died, and the funeral I attended yesterday, she was the very person that reached out to me in my darkest hour and supported me. And she really did give me the pep talk of a lifetime. Let's say that. And, you know, she said something very poignant that I'm a behavior specialist. So I've had a lot of training in the area of, you know, suicide prevention and trauma and things like that. I've never had this question asked to me, and she was on the phone with me, and I was, unraveling. And I said, I'm probably not a good person to talk to right now. And she said, no, 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 I'm going to call you. And I said, I just don't want to be here anymore. And I've never felt this way. I've never felt this. I feel like there's no attention attached to it. And I really just want to leave. There wasn't any like wanting to reach out to people to tell them, because it wasn't attention seeking, if that makes sense.
Yeah, people who
And
talk about it don't do it.
yeah, and she asked me, she said, if you were going to do it, how would you do it? And that was a very gruesome question, right? But I needed to be asked in that moment, because I said, I've just got back from the doctor. I went to the doctor and said, I'm not okay. I'm not well. I need help. They gave me a bottle of Xanax. And now I'm sitting at my house. There's a bottle of Xanax screaming my name. And she said, I want you to take that somewhere right now. Like, take a few out of it so you have some, but remove the obstacle that is in your way when you're in the depths right now. And it's absolutely heartbreaking that she was able to do that for me. And quite literally, I can't say that she saved my life, because I don't know, right? I don't know if I would have gone to that length. I'm not sure. But what I do know is my mind was very much there in that place to make that choice. And she made sure to ask that question to remove that obstacle from me. And then I wasn't able to do the same, because she didn't speak about it, and she just did it. And so I do think that, what a gruesome, hard, awful question to ask somebody, but to openly say, if you were going to do it, how would you do it? Because everyone has a different path, right, of how they want to go out. And so maybe we do need to have the really nasty conversations of, if you're trying to kill yourself, how are you going to do it? Let's remove those obstacles. Let's try to get those out of your way as much as we can, because I very much believe that that saved my life. And I was able to kind of muster through the next, days or weeks. And here I am. And that was 6 months ago. That was 6 months ago.
Thank you for sharing that. And just, it's not lost on me, as time passes, what this will unfold and what's happening, because yeah, there's so much potency in what you've shared and honoring her life and what's there. And what shows up for me is two things: what you resist persists, what you accept you go beyond. And the way we transcend is being unconditionally loved and known. And if this conversation is in someone's brain and it's not something that's allowed to be spoken outside, then it's them having that conversation alone. And it's not necessarily going to stop that conversation. And they also know that they're not alone in it. And they have someone that's not going to judge them or go against them or create something that isn't there. This giving people power and freedom and self-expression, and that they make sense, that their brain is creating that, their nervous system is creating that. There's a need for control. There's a need for sovereignty. There's a need for breaking out whatever this hell thing is. And so being able to actually honor people and actually see as a degree of self-compassion, because of what the biological experience is literally death. And so they're wanting to transcend this experience that their body is, because we don't have resources to transcend it. And so for me, everyone making so much sense and not judging someone who's inside of that conversation. And what shows up too is the systems that are at play. They give you the pills, and then if you do them, it's like, oh, well, that was her mental health issues. That's why she did that. And then we blame the person for taking their life, when not realizing the systems and the way we were raised and all of our brain and all this stuff is what's creating it. And so the loophole that is now the common culture is blaming the person that took their life, not looking at this is the as within, so without. You don't blame a tree when it doesn't grow. The environment we're in is literally killing people, and we won't talk about it. We blame the person for not growing. And so I get passionate, next level passionate on that. So I appreciate your guys' space for my passion.
I think where I'm stuck is, and currently where I'm stuck is, what do you do when you show up, Jason? And like, I'm sure you were a supportive, great ally for that your friend that you lost. Of course, he knew where your passions lied. He was in that work, right? What do you do when you are a lifeline, when you do reach out, and when you and like I said, she knew I had been there, and did not use me as a resource, an ally, or even come to the table. The last time I talked to her was 2 weeks before this, and to her face said, "Are you good?" And she said, "I'm better than good." And it's just, I keep saying, how didn't I know? How did I not know? But I didn't know because she didn't want anybody to know. So how do we break people out of that space of sheer silence? Not the ones that are crying out for help, but just like you said, Jason, the ones that talk about it don't necessarily do it, right? And so
Yeah.
what do you do when there's people in just complete silence?
So I hadn't talked to him. The last time I talked to him was actually at an outreach. It was a situation that we were taking care of for the nonprofit for some folks that were in need. And he came in later one evening that we were on site on a project, and he had just felt the need to bring some things. And so we talked for a little while. And then occasionally on the phone or through text, we would talk. So it was those of us who are in a position to be of value to people like that. I wasn't there. I hadn't talked to him enough. I wasn't close enough to a situation recently to be of value to him. And so the other thing is, it seems that you sort of take the cumulative experience of your environment and use that as a driver to determine the direction that you go. And when you feel all is hopeless because nobody is listening, sometimes 9 people out of 10 aren't listening, and that's nobody. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so when all that is piled up and you go to that dark place and contemplate the things that could potentially take you out of a situation that's dark, the reaction that is to end your life, almost no different, in my opinion, than stepping on a bug, a reaction. It is, it's a check-in. It's every week. It's something that I didn't do. It's something that, how are you doing, man? Is there anything I can do for you? Let's go. He loved to fish and hunt. That's how I met him. I bought a boat off of him, and we became friends after that. It's those things. It's letting people know that they're not alone.
Yeah, but maybe we are in this conversation together right now because your heart needs to hear me say, I was there. I was checking.
No, I wasn't.
I know, but I'm saying
I did not force my way into his life. I did not force a conversation on him. I did not force him to recognize that somebody cared. My sister tried to commit suicide twice. Both times I had no idea that it was, the first time I didn't know it was suicide. The second time, when I found out, she tried to overdose on pills. I never forced myself into a conversation with her to say, why are you doing this? I'm here. I care. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'll even say from my perspective too, with what I've been going through, feeling so isolated and alone, like Jason, you and I talk every day, and that even having someone in my world, I still feel so broken, isolated and alone, and like trying to get out of this. Like, I know I'm good. I'm not inside of that conversation. And the experience I have is that I'm so alone and no one's coming close. And so there is this degree of being able to, whatever that key is, I don't know.
You're in a hole.
Yeah.
And I'm not in the hole with you.
Yeah.
I'm at the top and you're looking up at me, and I might be extending a hand to help you out.
Yeah.
But the difference is when somebody's in there with you, it's a whole different experience.
Yeah.
Right? And that drives home the fact that everything that we're doing is arm's length.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You understand what I'm saying?
I agree with that.
But
it's about being willing to jump into the hole.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think
absolutely
that we are.
Yeah.
That's the thing. When we're dealing with, for example, law enforcement, and especially veterans, they're used to that environment where people will and people do. and then they come out to an environment where it's every man for himself.
Mm-hmm.
Just like in photography, perspective is everything, right? And when you take a photo of something from the top down, it gives you an entirely different emotional perspective than you do from the bottom up. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yep.
And when you're getting a hand and you're looking up at the hand that's trying to help you, sometimes that's not enough.
Yeah.
Sometimes that becomes the barrier. Sometimes pride is too big. You understand what I'm saying?
What's inside of that too, as you say that though, inside of the, because I do see that that communal effort with those like first responder dynamics, you then have the fit for duty conversations. So then yes, you're in the trenches together and you actually can't talk about things either. So there is a even disassociation between those that are inside of that world together too. There, I just see the lack of resource, the lack of normalcy, the destigmatization of this on the planet is really what I see is the language we're using is keeping this alive for so many people. And what shows up is just the second you say the conversation, you're stigmatized into that world. And then how do you ever get out? And so there's just a trap that you can have when you say this thing, because then that's who you become. People don't trust you. You don't necessarily gain any more power because now everyone doubts your brain state every single day, every single moment. And that's even more of a hell to live inside of.
The other thing is that people that are led to be helpers never ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not in their nature.
Guilty.
Yeah. Right.
You know,
And so again, it's that hand up, right? Or hand down. What position are you in? And we're used to being in the position to try to help people out of the hole, but it's the way, how do you do it? Right. And if you're sitting at the top of the hole and you're extending your arm, it's entirely different than jumping down in the hole and giving somebody a boost up.
Yep.
Right. And so our approach to that could be the Achilles heel that's setting the entire system up for failure. One of the things that we discussed yesterday, and Jenna, we had an hour and a half long conversation as we're trying to become a resource for veterans, ironically enough, and you know, try to reduce, you know, the rate, the you know, is that maybe we need to jump in that hole. Maybe we need to give them a boost up and then let them be the hand extended down into the hole to help us back out again.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
To allow helpers to help.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the position that we're putting people in. My buddy was, you know, everything from, like I said, military to law enforcement. I mean, he was just very active in the greater good, right? In the community of helping others. And I'm sure it would have been hard for him to ask for help.
I didn't ask for help.
Right. No, none of us do.
I mean, she reached out and said, "Are you okay?" And
That's a
I'm
powerful
glad that I
thing.
said no. I'm not.
Yeah, that's a powerful thing, because that reach out, it's the sort of thing that, you know, to let people know that you care. And again, it's a little bit obtrusive and invasive, but you have to do it. Hey man, I see, you know, what can I do?
And really see what's missing. I actually saw this yesterday inside of our conversation, Jason, is in many ways somewhat of a blueprint. And I don't actually, there's a term for it. It's military, and I don't remember what it's called now that I said it. It's a acronym where it's like, you simply have an intention. You don't know how it's necessarily going to get executed. And it's like a military term, and being able to have that intention inside of, you know, what's showing up for me and what's getting created for me. It's like the people that are in my world, like I have that intention, like here's this, and what's showing up is not necessarily like, okay, this shows up and now I jump in and now this is my whole life, because I'm trying to get out still too. There's a degree of like, I don't have the capacity to be of service right now. And how can we create blueprints and resources that we do this together? And it's not necessarily getting sucked in so that we, you know, a drowning person drowning another person. How do we do this together so we actually are independently moving through this and both cohesively, synergistically getting out of this together, which is what I'm seeing a lot of my space and community is is where I'm at. And this for me, that's like, I'm willing to lose it all because I know I get out. I know that there's enough of people here to momentumly create something. So I'm surrendered to whatever is getting created. And if I lose it all, I lose it all because it's worth whatever the cost is.
I think by being seen in our pain too. Like I was almost ashamed of myself yesterday, not in like a bad way, but you know, I did let her family know. Like I want you guys to know, you know, I'd love to sit down and have a deeper, longer conversation, but I want you to know I'm here because of her. And I was able to give that gift to her family who's grieving heavily at losing a 37-year-old, you know, absolutely beautiful being inside and out, who was a pillar in this community. She was a party planner. She owned her own business. I mean, everyone knew her. So it was tragic to say the least. But I also said to her family, I would really appreciate that you don't share this outside of here. Why did I do that? Why would I not want that to be shared? Why would I not want, you know, it's this position of like power, perceived power of, I do have a group with like 5,000 people in it that are watching me, you know, and it's called Fire to Inspire. I'm there to be inspirational, but I started to kind of let that crumble and show up in my pain and say, I know I'm here to inspire, but let me inspire this. If you are hurting, so the fuck am I. And I'm not over here perfect and just want you to feel and see and think that about me. I am actually struggling. Let's do this together. And it made me feel like I slipped myself down a little bit, but also it's finding the power in that voice of, it is okay to say, I am in pain, you are in pain, I see you, I hold space for you because I'm there. Why are we so quiet about, I'm also struggling? Why the fuck do we do that?
We shouldn't be.
You know?
I don't know
We
anyone who's
shouldn't be.
not struggling. So that's the degree of like, if you think you're not struggling, I mean, you're part of the process that's making this thing not work. Like the fellow human is struggling. So if you're not struggling, there's a degree of, I see why, and let's get in this together and leverage resources and begin to not take from each other and fight each other. How can we come to the middle and create this synergistic experience? And I know firsthand with so many people who have gone into the system, like these systems are enterprises. They do have a core tenet structure. And I think Jason and I were talking about that yesterday, the whole, like, they pretend they care and there's no essence underneath it that has that, and really see the world of AI doing the same thing too. And really got the distinction yesterday that really humans have intrinsic drive for value, and the system, AI, all that's getting created that's quote unquote killing us has no value. And so that creative brain, that inner self, that inner spirit, that inner drive has no space inside of that. And so you get a pill, you take this, you're better. And if you don't do that, it's on you, it's your fault. And I don't know what to tell you. So there's nothing inside of there that's going to give life to someone. It might hold them on for another day. It's never going to actually give life at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
And
Those
the number of people that I
solutions,
see coming out worse off when they go in that's what that woke me up a lot. The degree of people who
those
are worse off.
those solutions are designed to benefit the organizations,
Mhm.
I was going to say
whether
corporations that they
corporations, whether it be pharmaceutical or whoever can charge for those services. That's who's gaining the benefit, and that's part of the problem.
Mhm.
That's part of the problem.
Yep.
You know, the reality is there are too many barriers to help.
Mhm.
And the barriers are numerous. And there is no sense of tribe. Currently in our world, and especially in our country, everything, we are so polarized. It's all left and right, black and white, good and evil. It's so negative that it's just not conducive to an environment that would be beneficial to people who are in crisis.
Mhm.
You
or who
know,
crave community as well.
well, the thing is, these folks, and maybe we can learn from this. you know, these folks get in many ways to be away from that, especially when they're in environments like, you know, in combat and things like that, where they've got to depend on the people around them to survive. And then they come, you know, here to civilian life, and we think we've got it figured out, but there's none of that, right? We have nobody to depend on.
I completely agree with that.
Yeah, it's maybe it's our, you know, our close family, but some people don't even have that. Everything that we do or see is all about self. You know, people want to go ahead, and I was, you know, thinking about this morning. They spend more time posting photos of their wins, of their new cars and their homes and all the things they're doing and their fancy vacations, because it's all about them. It's all about them. Here, look at all my toys. Look at all my stuff. But people, these are the people that don't have anything to post about what they've done for the greater good, because they haven't, because they can't. They don't have the capacity or the bandwidth. And it's not healthy for any of us.
And if you do the opposite, you don't gain friends. I just learned that. So
right.
You do not. Well, and people feel the same way, right? It's like when I say I have a big meeting today to help people, I'm gonna post stuff like that, but I feel like people have the same reaction as if I was posting a picture of a new BMW.
Yeah.
They almost feel like it's like showboaty, and that is absolutely opposite of my mission. I just want to continue to put it out there that, like, if you want to link arms with me and like help heal this planet, like, come at me, bro. And I think it's seen differently though than what my intentions are.
Yes.
You have to be very forthcoming about the fact that what you're doing isn't comfortable, but you're doing it because it has to be done, because awareness is everything. The biggest, you know, people want to go ahead and use the excuse that they've read somewhere or somebody has told them that they should be silent about the things that they're doing. Not the reality.
Sorry, my phone is dying. I'm gonna go plug it in. I don't know why it's dying.
Perfect. Thank you for being real life with us.
If the cause is big enough, then you should let the world know. And that's not a comfortable thing to do.
It's not. But it's worth it, and I'm going to keep doing it.
Absolutely.
I sometimes get in these positions where I let things, you know, get in my way, and that's what kind of, Jason, what you were saying at the beginning of, like, it just feels like we're losing. But that kind of talk is like, takes us further away from what we really need to keep doing. Is like,
absolutely,
we got to keep going.
And what shows up, I mean, this is the crux of what my passion, purpose, mission is, this real life, whole life. How do we hold what the feeling is? Because the feeling truly feels like it's losing. And how do we come together as a community so we can have this biofeedback? Because my human is experiencing this complete defeat. How do I have someone externally to reflect to me what is actually true and real at a deeper core level? Because my instant brain reaction is, this is pointless. I can't do this. I don't have this. That's my nervous system brain state. How do I have an environment that supports me, which is what I'm out to create? And this degree too of this show up for none, which I had been doing, and then created this wild experience that is radically aligned and all that kind of stuff. And so I do get so passionate because I can see it. And there's just simply like, there's a someone today though. So that's where I feel like it's so hard, because there is someone today. There's a lot of someone's today. I don't know the veterans number. I think they have number of people per day. The number that I live inside of, like,
22.
These are people. Yeah. These are people.
22 a day.
22 a day. The high schoolers, the neurodivergent, the numbers that are every day, like, yes, that's happening, and I can see it, and I know that it's coming. And today is just like the devastation of, how do I hold that heartbreak, that devastation? I mean, both of you are inside of it so loudly right now. How do you hold that and keep going? Because that devastation, like, it's the momentum around the devastation. I mean, I think we're finally at a space where we're coming together. Momentum's here. So I'm just seeing my
flip it.
invigorated.
For me, it's in my face, and I can lay down and cry and say, how did this happen? And blame myself and say, how did I not know? How did I miss it? Why didn't I show up more? I can do that. Or I can go, not again. Not again. I'm going to do everything I can, one foot in front of the other. I'm going to jump on this live the day after her funeral. I'm going to do whatever I can. It's using devastation as motivation. That's really all we can do. Because if we just let it overcome us, that is in turn losing. That is losing. That's what darkness wants, is for all of us to go, fuck it.
And I really hear
We can't change it.
I really hear what's getting created here with all of us is this experience of like, we don't know, we don't have the answers, and we'll get in the trenches and discover this with you, compared to us coming in being like, here's the 6-step program for your uncompletely scripted life that has no clue what's next. Like taking someone into a black and white path, like our lives are unscripted. We have nothing to account for. It is this spiritual, emotional, mental, physical war that us being able to show that we're like, we've got the passion and rawness and we'll be there, and what's there, just really seeing people getting comfortable with seeing what's out there through other people. And I just know that there's hundreds of thousands of us who have been doing the work for ourselves that have become these safe spaces. And the whole, you can't meet people, you only can meet people as deep as you've met yourself. And these people who have met themselves deeply and who have been in these spaces, learning how to hold this and actually be that momentum to become no longer the underdog in that sense, whatever is there.
I think, you know, I've been putting a lot of thought into like our conversation yesterday. And as I think more about it today, you know, and I think it's something that we need to present, that as we kind of put the bones together for this app, for example, that it needs to be, it needs to be a tribe, right? The 1,000 or 1,500 people that utilize this resource need to be able to have a seamless, no barrier communication with each other, because they're all in the same exact boat. And there's no more powerful group to be around than people who are just like you when you're in a position or, you know, of crisis. I've learned that through my own experiences, but also, you know, just showing up for folks. You know, this world is used to the people that are administering help and advice, you know, middle-aged white men sitting behind a desk in a suit and tie that have no business administering or claiming to be able to administer any resource because they haven't been there. And I don't care, PhDs, I don't care about your college. I care about your experience, and show me where you've been. And that is the thing that I think is lacking. I think that is too much of what's available in the resources that are out there now. People with a lot of good intention, but horrible execution because they've never been there.
Yep.
You know, I'm not gonna, well, yeah, I am. I'm grateful. I've never been to that deep. I've never been there. And you know, if you let life change you, it will, kind of. And so I had never been in that place, and I had lost a lot of really dear friends to me. And I'd always said, like, I just don't get it. I just don't understand, you know, like, why, how I would do that. And then I arrived to that place. And now I know why, and I know how, and I know it's very real. And so I hadn't, until I had that experience, like you said, I could have, I have all the degrees on my wall, but it didn't matter until I was in the depths of that darkness where I'm like, holy shit, it's so much deeper, and it grabs you so much tighter than any book I've ever read or strategy I know. And I will say, one of the things that I did, I love that you guys are creating and making an app and all these things. I'm a boots on the ground kind of girl. And yesterday after the funeral, I said, we're going out, you know, whoever wants to come. I put it on Facebook, like, hey, this is where we're going. If everyone is welcome to come. And you know, what ended up happening is it started out with about 15 of us, and it grew. And it grew and it grew and it grew. And it was people that felt uncomfortable, I think, when they first walked in. And what we were able to create was a space of, come on, sit on down, order a beer, let's go. And we all just ended up hanging out. And before everyone left last night, I said, we will be doing this indefinitely, every week, every month, once a month, monthly meetups of just connecting with humans and coming to the table and saying, life is rough, but man, this is a good time. Life is, and I don't know that that solves all the problems, but it makes me feel good to know that exactly what you said, Jason, is that like we're missing community. So how do we build community? And I'm not, and I do think an app is beautiful, but I can assure you it's person to person. It's contact.
Absolutely.
It's by
Absolutely.
humans.
Yeah. But, you know, and our goal with that is to be able to segue that interaction with the app, and the app to be the most personal way to be able to communicate human to human. It's just basically, you know, just like making a phone call, without the ability to have somebody's number or find their contact, kind of thing. You know, so we're living in a world, where everything is AI generated, and we're commoditizing the whole, human experience, and we're losing because of it. You know, the farther we go into that hole, the more we lose. And we definitely, you know, it seems like an awful simple solution to our problem, but people just need to care about people.
Yeah.
You know, it's as easy as that.
I do like the idea too of people being able to reach out so that they don't have that stigma in their
Yeah.
own space, because
Yeah.
I think that's what we're working against, right? Is that
Yeah.
even in my most vulnerable time to my friend and telling her I was in this dark place, she knew that
Yeah.
she could reach out to me, but that would then create that stigma, right? That she wasn't okay. And she
Yeah.
didn't want that. And so it's like, had she maybe had a lifeline that wasn't personal, it could that have made a difference? But there is a hotline.
Well, I will
So
say,
what's the argument for that?
I will not ever call a hotline. The degree of trauma
Hotline's a
I've been
barrier.
through, I
Yep,
will never
hotline's a
call a
barrier.
hotline ever, just because
Yeah.
I don't trust anyone on the other side of that phone. And especially living in Washington State, I say the wrong thing and I'm taken against my will, and there's nothing I can say. So the
Yeah.
degree of people who go through this and get traumatized by the system, you don't touch the system because you don't get out, and I'm out right now. So that's A, I get heated on that one. And then B, the other experience I have is what's there too when reaching out to someone is if someone is ill-equipped, if you're struggling and that person's ill-equipped, you now have to deal with their inability to be with you, and you're barely holding on, and then they make it about themselves. So for me, I see it as very codependent, and why family can't
Yes.
really work either, because if I told someone this and they aren't stable enough and they're too detached or too attached, detached and attached, actually both, how shows up is now I'm drowning and now they just put my head underwater. So there's a lot of avoidance I did because I'm just barely paddling. And so if I come in contact with someone and they don't know how to be with me in my triggered state and where I'm at and the anger I've got and the injustice that I'm fighting, like it's just drown. And then they can call the cops on me and then I'm really drowned. So the nervous system PTSD reaction is so intense and insane. I'm even experiencing it right now. That people really don't know how to be with that passion and that resolve and that intensity at the end of the day.
Or I did say to a couple of my closer friends, I'm not okay. I don't want to be here anymore. And I've never felt that way. I was trying to open the conversation of, I'm really concerned for myself, and one of my very good, dear friends literally said back to me, you're strong. You're the strongest woman I know. You'll be all right. Like that was the conversation. It was like, I don't know what I needed from that conversation, but I can assure you it wasn't that. It wasn't to tell me that I'm strong and I'll be okay. I'm telling you I'm not okay. So it is, where do you draw that line of like, who is the appropriate person to, carry that weight? I don't know what the answer
Peers,
is.
people who've been where you are.
Yeah.
And that's our, our goal is to assign peer support to the network. And then the specialists are essentially people who are known in the community and to have been in those positions. Both
I like
on
that. I like
on the yeah, and that's again, it's meeting people how they are, who they are, where they are. We had an outreach one time of some ladies that were homeless that came to us, and they couldn't get any of the resources to do anything for them. And the three, it was two ladies and three dudes, three middle-aged dudes, myself and Rob and another fellow that was with us, and all three of us had been homeless for different reasons at different times and at different capacities, but we all had our stories, right? And all three had shown up and were talking to these ladies, and they had a situation where they had many barriers between criminal past and all these things to prevent them from getting a home, so they were just kind of floating around. And when we were given, sort of talking to them and trying to figure out, hey, who are you? What do you need? One of us, it happened to be Rob, had a story that was very similar to theirs. And it was very impactful. There was tears all around, a lot of emotion, because we could truly empathize with these folks because we'd been there.
Right.
You're looking at three dudes that had been homeless.
Right.
And you're looking at, and it was a breakthrough, and we were able to get these folks what they needed and where they needed to be, because they were willing to have the conversation with people that were like them.
And you
And
have to
that's
be
the
willing,
goal.
you have to be willing, if you've been there, to go to say I've been there.
Absolutely. You provide no value if you're going to just hide everything about your
Right.
past.
That's how I felt yesterday about, like, I would appreciate if you didn't share this. And I was just like, I kind of left that situation like, why would I say that? Why would that be a secret, that I was in this space and she reached out her hand and pulled me out of it? It's not a secret. It's, why am I ashamed for people to know that I was literally feeling suicidal 6 months ago? It's not shame. Here I am. I'm here. Yeah. It's beautiful.
Yep.
And how do we knock the dust off of that? We just keep showing up and saying, I've been where you are. Like you said, Jason, I've been homeless. Let me help you. Yes. I'm not ashamed of the hard spots, because now I recognize and acknowledge that it was only put in place so I could help people behind me.
Yeah.
And really see too how to really, what I'm out to create is that, how do we create this conversation for every human? And it's not a matter of once your brain starts going down this path, now you struggle. No, life is going to give you a crisis one way or another. And the fact that you're going to be equipped for that crisis is a degree of ignorance that is simply like, how can we prepare ourselves? And if you have no awareness of your mental state, then you're trapped by it already. Like, if you lack, like you said, awareness is key, or is the most important thing, Jason. Like, if you don't have awareness of this conversation, then you're part of the problem, because you're simply delusionally cognitive dissonance contributing to the force that is killing humans. Like, how do we raise the awareness of our own mental health state, normalize this as everyone's going to have a crisis? And if not, then at least you prepared to, so that you don't. And so how do we normalize it there? And also, instead of seeing like, I'm in this conversation, I got out, it's just simply, this is what's here today. And life might show me some stuff that I don't know how to get through. And I'll be in that space again. And this is how I handle this situation when my brain state gets to this place. Everyone is going to this space when life throws itself at them in a way that would create that as a normal physiological response. It's not because my brain chemistry is messed up, now I want to do this. It's no, the chemistry of the planet is off. The energy of the planet is off. The energy that's happening here. We've divorced brain and body and have made this trap that is our brain, like we can control it. And it's like, no, it's my nervous system, it's my subconscious. There's so much more biologically that's contributing to this conversation that we do not account for. It just is divorced in our world.
Yeah. The other thing is that as we, and forgive the term, but as we normalize some of the symptoms of mental illness, there will continue to be people that will leverage that. Mm-hmm. And there will also be people that will continue to live in torture because they understand that they're not the same. Mm-hmm. And the help, we will perpetuate and continue to be an issue. I mean, we've got politicians every single day that are leveraging mental illness for their own gain. Mm-hmm. Right? And so we can't address problems if people won't recognize that there is one. So we have to create an awareness at a consumer level,
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
and say, hey, you know, we're here for you. These are the things that some of the symptoms you might be exhibiting if you've got this particular problem.
Mhm.
You know, and not allowing every instance of mental health crisis to be a talking point for politicians that have no business
Mhm.
discussing anything from pandemics to mental health.
I can co-sign that.
Yes, not where the mic should be.
No, no,
No.
it's being leveraged every day,
Yeah.
every single day.
And I mean, I just see it too. I actually saw a comment recently that was talking about PTSD and how those with ADHD, if they just acknowledge what they've got, then they wouldn't have this. And it's a thing and it's thing and it's thing. And so for me, the degree of the neurodivergent brain, the neurodivergent nervous system, what I've been discovering inside of that, it is a massive paradigm shift. And I do believe every single human makes sense and that we are a program at the end of the day. And how do we create that tribe, that community to where you can feel quote unquote normal, even though that's an elusive moving target, where you actually have the ability to be you on the planet. And I think that's what's missing, is that we don't have space for people to be themselves fully, even if it's messy, even if it's
We're
the
trying to
biggest hot
create
mess.
it, man. We're trying.
Yes,
Some of us are out here trying to create it.
we're creating it. Yes. And it's because for me, the experience of until I'm raw and real and allow what's actually authentically in me to come up, I'm just stuffing it down. And so being able to actually see that, oh, that's a trauma response. I can help her just simply hold the space because she's going to get through it. And it's not anything you need to do, just learning how to be a listener and a reflector and really leveraging people's own brilliance to get themselves out. We don't need to interject and save someone. People will help themselves, and if they can't do it alone. And something I say in my community too is together we can take care of ourselves. Is how do we come together and leverage the brilliant that is trapped inside of every human, that does know the way out, that our intuition, our inner self knows how to get out. And this brain, this real life duality is out to kill us. Like that's literally survival brain. It's out to kill the very thing that we're trying to transcend. So it makes sense to me, and that's what I want to help do, is just make it make sense. And this is uncharted territory at a degree of I don't understand what people are going through. I don't understand what it's like to be inside of that conversation, and I don't necessarily have the answers. And just simply being in this conversation, I believe we'll begin to pick little pieces that we can discover out loud.
Well, and you know, I've been leading my little pocket slice of the world into violent vulnerability. You know,
Mhm.
that to be vulnerable is to be strong.
Mhm.
And that takes courage, not the other way around of hiding things and pretending that you're something that you're not. That being violently vulnerable is where courage lies. And just trying but it is, even for me as the talking head of this movement or whatever, it's still hard for me to be violently vulnerable. I do this thing where I'm like, oh, here we go, you know, but I'm showing up more and more, and what's being reflected back to me is when I do that, more people do respond because they're like, I saw it, I felt it. It's not this like hokey, like you said, politicians, you know, like for game. It's, oh wow, she really did show up today in that space. I can too. And so I do think that that matters, is how we show up, is how we, you know, help other people to feel brazen about showing up in the same way. So I do think that how we show up is important as well. It's not just what can we do, what can we do? It's how can we be? Like how can we personally be to be an example, you know?
Absolutely.
Mm.
I'm so glad we had this conversation. It feels in like perfect alignment with today. And Jason, I'm sorry about your friend, and I'm sure many others. It does, you know what, it doesn't matter. I feel like what I've learned about suicide is it doesn't matter how many times it happens. It
Yeah.
hurts equally, if not more, every time.
Yeah.
It doesn't change, you know, it doesn't, like, I haven't gotten used to it. It hurts more. And I'm
Yeah.
like, not again. Not again. Just my graduating class, we've lost 3 in a month to
Wow.
suicide. And we graduated with like 1,000 people. So that's 3 in a month. What
It's a
is
lot.
going on? And like you said, Jenna, like it feels vibrational. It feels like the world feels heavy right now. If
Yeah,
you
it
are
is.
empath, you're like, what is going on right now?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
what are we transitioning into? What are we doing? But what I do know is if we don't all buckle down and hold on tight to each other,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to continue to experience this over and over and over again.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for, I'm just going to reflect back to you too, Amanda, with, I went into a space processing some major PTSD trauma, and Amanda just showed up and came in and like met me where I was at. And she's like, was like intimidated by inserting in. And when she inserted in, she's like, oh, this wasn't scary at all. I was like, no, I was just crying for help. Like these people that I was friends with have completely abandoned me, and they're in this space, and I'm crying out because I don't know how to get their attention to see that there's something here, there's a divide here, that we need to come together and have this conversation. And my experience with what I happened to, just people, you know, they say you can't be a prophet in your own town, and this the picture of like all of the, I think there's like soap and bugs. I don't know if you've ever seen it, where you like touch it and like just disappears. This like, that's my experiences. I went into a psych box. No one will look at me. No one will talk at me. Everyone's afraid of me. And I'm like, I know this space. I know I'm going to go in and use this as an experience, because those that are afraid of me, whatever they're afraid of is the very thing that's keeping people isolated and alone, and this perpetuating on the planet. So I'm like, I'll be scary all day long because I'm not scary. We just don't know. There's a violent vulnerability that I do carry. And so your leaning in has expanded so much. And from there, the Magical Misfits group that we've got, I think we got 25, 30 people, and just really inviting me into just this, again, holding on. How do we hold on together? Because none of us have the answers, and together we can make sense. I really see more and more too. And so how do we do that together?
I love you.
I love you too. Yeah. And just, yeah. And also too, Jason, the way that you reached out to me, I mean, you reached out shortly after, and you're like, you're hemorrhaging out. And I'm like, I know, and I don't know what to do. Like, there's just an experience of, you saw it, and you're on the other side of the country, and you even put together resources for me to be able to go and get help. And like, you did so much stuff, and there was just simply a space of like, I only can do what I can do. And there was just I keep my head down, and I know I get out, and it's been done perfectly, and it's been a hot mess. And so just that templating my experience and templating everyone's experience to show there's no roadmap here. It's really messy, and just keep going, keep holding on, and keep breathing. Like you're already doing it, and just you're not alone, which your brain will say you are alone. And so how do you just keep going until that proof is there? Because I am alone is something I live into all the time. And I know if I keep walking as I'm alone, I will find someone. And when I find that one person, the degree of not alone that I have is so powerful that it's like, I'll just keep showing up raw and real, because I will find someone. I know I will. They're out there. So how do I just keep going? And that's been something that held me on over and over and over again.
Yeah. I'll tell you one more quick story before we adjourn. So, oh, wow. Hey, what's today's date? June 6th?
6/6/23.
Okay. Wow. All right. So June 5th, I actually posted this on my profile. I was real quick. We were in a meeting, Rob and I, the co-founder of the nonprofit. We were in a meeting, it was like a Monday morning meeting at McDonald's, drinking coffee and kind of, figuring out what our day's going to be. And we had noticed that 2 news stations were up in the center of our community because, for one, there was a big story going on about court. There was somebody that was in court for a crime. But then there was also, we have a World War II D-Day memorial in the front of our community. And the weird thing is that it's in the city, but it belongs to the county, and it was donated by a local organization. And so there was essentially 3 different organizations that were part of this memorial, and nobody did anything about it. It was overgrown. And that struck me because the news was up there complaining about it and saying, trying to sensationalize this problem. And I said, Rob, let's go take care of this. And so we went up there, and when they faced us and said, well, what do you think about this? I think it's horrible, because it's my responsibility, because my grandfather was one of the ones that stormed the beaches of Normandy. He was first wave, part of the Big Red One, right? June 6th. Well, the recognition for that came about a month later. The organization that donated the memorial called us up and said, we'd like to meet with you because we appreciate what you did, and not putting derogatory focus on any of the organizations, but jumping into action. And so after we had that meeting, we came again to another McDonald's across town, and we sat there and kind of discussed what had transpired in this meeting and kind of where do we go from here. And this kid, she had to be 18, 19 years old, came down from the hospital that's right above this particular McDonald's. And she came up with, still had her bracelet from admittance to the hospital, and what couple belongings she had with her. And she came to us, two middle-aged, bearded dudes, probably pretty creepy if you think about it, and said, can I get a ride somewhere? And we were like, no, we can find somebody to give you a ride, but we're probably not the right people. And then we got to thinking about the fact that what's lacking is when these folks exit treatment, who's there to hold their hand and lead them across the next threshold, right? She was left to walk down into a McDonald's parking lot to ask two creepy middle-aged dudes for a ride to who knows where.
Which could have really opened the door to even more trauma and pain and suffering.
But what do you do?
Hand, but
no, you're 100%.
Yeah.
But she didn't know what to do because nobody was there to hold her hand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's what we lack, right? And so when you create a tribe, your objective is to get people, even though the tribe is, disconnected to an extent because it's all almost virtual, right? It's all being done through a phone. But the next thing is there's got to be people there who can literally hold that hand and say, come on, I got you.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go to the next step.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This is where you need to be.
Yeah.
Our hospital, the mental hospital that I used to work for, is just opening the doors and essentially kicking people out. And they enter the community no better off than they were when they came in.
Yep. I experienced that too. I got prescription and I told him a thing. I'm like, so you're assuming that I can go to the place to get the prescription that I need to take. Like, why don't we mail this to someone's house? Like the degree. And then I managed to come up with this. I was messing around because I wasn't happy. I gave them the name of a pharmacy I don't even use. And so then they sent it to a pharmacy I don't even use. And so like the degree of like, there's no support, like the degree of someone is in a crisis and then they're supposed to take care of themselves and get them out. Like it's so hands off, hands washed. We're going to take no fault. And it is requiring those of us who are empathic, sensitive humans to step in and fill this gap. And I really do see momentum getting created. I really do see it's easier than I think we create it as, because it's simply being able to insert in that's there and being able to actually show that there is a path out, that other people have done it. And the power of a story is we just have we don't have templates for getting out. And so being able to see that the more we vulnerably show up raw and real, like this is life, and normalize this is life. Why I like to say be the lowest common denominator, because someone else is walking it with you. This illusion we create on the planet is killing people. And so how do we show up real and really fill in that gap and hold that gap with people? So you guys being the gap fillers, and really I'm just beyond moved by both of you and what you're creating, and beyond honored that I get to do life with you both.
I love that you said that too, because that gives a whole nother perspective of, I walked into my doctor's office and said, I'm not well. I think I'm going to leave here.
Mm-hmm.
I want to leave the planet. And they said, here, we'll fill a script. Go grab it. Like, I was not in a position to get in my car and go wait on a prescription. I was literally at my bottom. I mean, I did it, right? I did it. I'm here. But the very scary nature of that is, I needed to be held and contained and protected. And instead it was like, here's this, we've filled it, go figure it out. You got this. At any point from A to B on my way there, it could have been tragic. So thank you for saying that, because it puts another perspective for me in there, where it's like, take someone with you when you're going to those places. That's a different conversation too. Like, you're not in a capacity to make decisions or do things like that. So I have loved this conversation.
Same. Thank you for both. And I really want to end it too to say, the conversation, and I see the stigma around those that take their lives and trying to figure out why they did it and dissecting them, and so sad or shame or whatever shows up there. This experience of they are our teachers. They are the trees that are dying in our current culture. They make perfect sense. What they did made perfect sense. How can we change the environment we're in? So that is no longer even throat chakra. No longer even a conversation that we're having, and we have to have it. We have to go in. We have to normalize this conversation, because what we resist persists. What we accept, we go beyond. We have to accept that this is everyone's brain, and if it's not yours today, it could be tomorrow. And so don't pretend that it's not coming for you, because this is the brain. The brain has to die in some ways to be able to get to your heart, and this is the path. And how close people are when they are authentically able to come out in a space. Like, I just think of you, Amanda, 6 months ago. Like, you showed up, you were real, and what you now have access to because you were real, and what you like, this, how close you were to transcending it all. Like, when you do reach bottom in the right place, what you can do from there is, it's so powerful. So thank you for using your story, and thank you for showing up and just leaping in. Big.
I have a big meeting today at 5:30. So
okay. We'll
send me
be
some
holding all this
lovin'.
stuff. Yes, all the love for that too. Yes. Thank you for taking action. Like, messy action. Take action. At least it's action. That's what I show up in, because silence and inaction is
That's right. Do something. That's right.
Yep.
I'm gonna do something, damn
Progress over perfection.
Progress
That's
over
right.
perfection. Thank you for teaching me that powerfully, Jason. Thank you for being here. Anything else you want to add as we complete?
We're good.
We're good. Thank you. Appreciate you all.
Thank
Much
y'all
love.
so much.
Have an awesome day.
Love
See
y'all.
you. To finish out this episode, I simply want to say thank you for being here. However this conversation met you, I want to honor. And with that, there is a part of me that has a hard time finishing this video, because I know that what is needed for where we're at is lacking. It's inadequate. I don't know what to do next. And I feel massively inadequate when it comes to posting this online and not being able to point to any specific resources. I will say what I'm out to creating and producing on this account are videos and resources to help you through whatever you're going through, or at least having dialogue and conversations to expand resources that are online, and hopefully extend that into in-person resources. And so what's there for me is, if you're watching this, I'd love to invite you in. I'm just getting started. If you desire to be a part of this conversation, I want everyone to feel like they can have a seat at the table when it comes to this conversation. Every single human is part of this conversation. So if you want to join us, and however that looks like for you, I want you to know I want to be having this conversation more often. So please reach out to me directly. I would say Instagram at I am Jenna Michelle will be the best place to go to find me consistently. And I have content at Real Life Whole Life on YouTube, and the Jenna Michelle Show on YouTube. And really see, for me, Real Life Whole Life is where I plan to put specific tools and resources to help support you on your self-discovery journey, on what it looks like to embody whole and complete. And I don't believe there's good resources online, and I'm working every day to ensure my well-being as it is a space where I can create resources externally. And if you offer tools, resources on the planet, I would love to connect and share the world and share with the world who you are and what you're up to on the Jenna Michelle Show. So know if you personally have resources, I'd love to have you on the Jenna Michelle Show, interview you, and have some really specific tools, tangible resources, and things that we could continue to leverage what's on the planet. And so I would say this desire that I have is being what I'm calling a reverse influencer. So if you have a tool, resource on the planet, I'd love to check it out. I'd love to assess it. I'd love to see how it works and leverage it with my own brain genius mind that has this ability to see what I'm seeing is the difference between shame-based motivated change and really this honoring, loving, sovereignty, keeping people in their power change. And if you're send me content, I'll always give you positive feedback in regards to ways that you can fit in this bucket where we all can come together cohesively and together and outside of duality. And sometimes that awareness can be lacking in different spaces, and it's not a problem. It's a whole new paradigm. And so that's what I'm committed to, is really changing the narrative, changing the paradigm. And it's not bad or wrong with what you've created. You've created something powerfully. And so if you want to leverage me and this whole reverse influencer thing that I'm working on doing, I'd love to see what you have to offer. And I would say email. Where do I want you to email? Reach out to me on Instagram. It's going to be the best place. It's the one-stop shop that I'm always popping into. I am Jenna Michelle on Instagram. Follow me there, and then I'll see your message if you want to reach out. And if you want to be part of this dialogue, whatever you want, I'd love to hear. I love feedback, thoughts, anything. Also, encourage you to comment down below to help other people know and see that they're not alone when it comes to watching this. I find comments to be massively powerful and making a difference. And definitely invite you to like this, as that makes a massive difference for me too. So it's like, oh, it is. People are watching this. Okay, this is helpful. It was feedback. It's massive feedback for me. I like to say too, it literally puts food on my table because it gives me the energetic momentum to keep going and leaning in direction. So if you found value, if you got something out of this, I would love, 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 love to help you shift from a content consumer to a content creator, which content creator co-creation is what that looks like. And a content co-creator is someone who likes, comments, and subscribes to help me co-create what I see is changing the planet, what I see as ending this conversation on the planet. And so if you would like to help me in that conversation on the planet, I would invite you to like, subscribe, and comment, and follow me on TikTok, follow me on Instagram, follow me on all the things, which I'll also have linked down below in the description. And I'll include the links for those that were a part of this conversation today too. Thank you for being here. Thank you for showing up. Keep holding on, keep showing up. We do make it out. We do make it alive. There's a degree of, we are the most powerful healers on the planet. We are capable of healing. The environment we live in is not supportive, not conducive, and that is changing. And so that's why I like to say, keep holding on, keep showing up. And I would love for you to be a contribution to this conversation so we can discover what's missing on the planet to begin to shift, grow, and change into a way that works for you. And I believe if we create what works for you, we create a world that works for everybody. And so that's what I started at 2 years ago when I was on TikTok. And the path has not been easy. The path has been brutal. Brutal. And my commitment is showing up publicly and helping remove that brutality and create the tools and resources that helped me survive the constant nervous system shock, the constant abandonment, betrayal, all of that happened with my own self-discovery journey. And it's part of the process. So if you're here in this conversation today, it is part of the process, and I want to continue to normalize this so we can remove the brutality and begin to create cohesive community that can support this and turn the knob down on how terribly hard it is to be in the trenches alone. And I really want to say, like, I'm committed to staying in the trenches and staying in the spaces. And I like to say darkness is not dark to me, and being able to transcend the darkness that's on the planet and go into the depths that are there and begin to really change the planet. Because I will say, to summarize, well, I know on the conversation we were talking about how scary and feels like we're failing and all that kind of stuff. Darkness doesn't win here. I know that with every fiber of my being. I know that with so many other people who are doing this work with me. Darkness does not dark here, and darkness does not win here. We now can see that clearly, and I want to continue to help create resources to help that see. And I really truly see it begins with you and the darkness that's inside of you. And also too, if this is, I would say, I'm gonna be posting this on Real Life Whole Life and the Jenna Michelle Show. So this is on Real Life Whole Life. You can click around and watch some of my trainings that I have on how to transcend the dualistic energy that's in your body. And with the Jenna Michelle Show, I'll have the links below, so you can hop over to Real Life Whole Life if you want to start watching some of that content of how to transcend the dualistic energy that's in our bodies. And you can intuitively lead guide there. And I'm continuing to create content almost every day, and I'm a human and not a machine. So I trust my own well-being over everything, because if I do not stay grounded and well, I'm not creating content that's actually a contribution, because I'm doing it at sacrifice to my survival. And I want to be well in everything I do. So that's my commitment. And I show up for none first. And thank you for being here, because that means you are one of my ones that show up, and the abundance around the ones that show up. I just want you to know the degree. If you've made it this far and you're watching it this point in time, I want to be a mirror and reflection and say, as within, so without. Who you are on the planet today is changing the world. Whatever you see in me, that is you, my friend. That is you. You are that extreme. You are that intense. You're that powerful. I don't know how you see me. That's just a possible idea. Is that genius, that brilliant, that however you want to create me, that is what I see in you too. And what I want to see is, as within, so without. How can we continue to create whatever shows up in the brain that would have you think that you're different, that would think that we are each unique, we are quote unquote different. And there's a degree of energetically, essence wise, what we're put on the planet to do. We've got the same purpose. We got the same mission. We got the same thing. We're going to do it very differently. And how do we come together and be the tribe, be the body, if you're in that context with me, how do we come together and be this epic force for good that is and will and has changed the planet for forever. Like it is done, it is done, it is done. How do we begin to create an environment where we can walk in that, call people into it, and actually begin to end this conversation on the planet as a real thing, because we're actually willing to have it. So if you want to have it with me, please know I would love to invite you into this conversation. Thank you for being here. So much love, and I look forward to connecting. Take care.